Well, along with all these budget issues, there has been a lot of discussion in the news and among the education communities about reorganizing the governing structure of education in Tennessee. Right now, we have three organizations: the Tennessee Board of Regents, the University of Tennessee System, and the Tennessee Higher Education System. They all lead higher education in Tennessee. Tell us a little bit about what those three do and what the discussion is to change that system.
Well, I would think that most viewers have a fairly complete understanding of what the Tennessee Board of Regents system governance structure is, and the same for the UT system. The THEC, Tennessee Higher Education Committee, is probably a little bit less obvious. But basically, both the University of Tennessee system and the TBR system, it's a group of men and women, unpaid, appointed by the governor, who set the overarching policies for the respective institutions, and then they leave the management of the institution to the respective presidents at each of the institutions. The way our chancellor often describes it, if it's not orange, it's Tennessee Board of Regents. Okay. So they control how much money is allocated for each institution. They control the policies and procedures in those areas. THEC, now what THEC does, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, their job is actually to be kind of the overseer of both the UT and the TBR system as it relates to making sure that certain programs are, if we want to create a new program, whether it's at a technology center for the TBR system or one of the universities, community colleges, or the UT system, we have to do due diligence before we put a new program on the table. And that eventually has to go to THEC, and THEC has to look to see whether it's a legitimate program, whether it meets certain educational criteria, and whether there's a need for it. And then they will authorize approval for that institution to offer that program. The bottom line behind it is just another level of oversight to make sure that we are using taxpayers' money appropriately, and that the quality of what we are offering is of high academic integrity.
What do you think of the discussions of combining or limiting the overall structure? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's antiquated as it is now?
I don't know if it's antiquated. I don't know if it's necessary. But I think if we're going to look at it, now's the perfect time to do that. With Dr. Peterson from Chancellor of or President from the UT system leaving, UT system has appointed an interim. Dr. Manning has, as of at our board meeting yesterday, announced that he will continue as the interim for the Tennessee Board of Regents system for the next year or two. And so, if things are going to be done, if there's going to be changes made, now's the time to look at those. The big thing that probably should drive everyone on this discussion is first to decide what we want to accomplish. I mean, that to me is really the issue. If we're wanting a better system that serves our students better, that assures us better retention rates and graduation rates and success rate. If we're looking at trying to develop a system that will help encourage or stimulate more people going to college or higher education so that we can have a better qualified workforce and a better economic development throughout our state, well, what is it that you're wanting to accomplish? And then once you know that, then you can go in and see whether the existing system best delivers that or if there's another way. And then certainly I have no objections or problems with us trying to become better, be better at reducing costs. If there's duplication and all of that, well then let's eliminate that. But to go in and look at them simply to save a few dollars, I think is the wrong approach. That's a great side benefit, but our number one thing should be to make sure our students are served.
Right, right. There are a couple of pieces of legislation proposed this year to address the higher education system. Let's specifically talk to a couple of those. One proposed by Senator Jim Kyle and Representative Craig Fitzhugh calls upon the three organizations to present reform recommendations by January 2010. They call their legislation the Streamlining Higher and Post-Secondary Education Act, or SHAPE. It also includes a phase-out of the current system. Tell me a little bit about what you think of that approach in particular.
Well, the part about that, that you didn't mention that I believe is in there, is that that requires a review of each institution, and each institution can do it on their own, or they can do one of a task force type of thing. I guess my first blush thought about that is you would hope that whether it's TBR, UT, or THEC, that they're always looking at better ways within their own systems to better improve. So if you're going to take this great opportunity to do this, it seems to me you need to get everybody at the same table. If we just have them do it individually, I don't really know that we're going to accomplish much. So the second one seems to be actually a little bit better opportunity. Putting the three systems under some type of a time limit, that either you do it now or you go out of existence or this, I don't have any problem with giving us a realistic deadline for getting this done. Now, whether that's a realistic deadline, I don't know. But setting a timeline, I think, is appropriate.
The second piece of legislation that you mentioned is a proposal by Senator Andy Burke and Representative Mark Maddox, which would create a task force, as you mentioned, to study higher education and then make recommendations by February 2010. And as you said, that in your opinion, may be a slightly better approach.
It depends upon who's on the task force, you know, and we're all going to want a seat around the table because you try to protect your students, and you know, and so you know, tell me who's on the task force, and then I'll tell you whether I like it or not. How's that?
There you go. That's fair. Do you expect that students would see any changes in their academic programs or courses if they do change the way the system is managed? I think
there's some changes that could happen. Some on a great positive side, some on a negative side. Whether it saves us any cost on budgetary issues, you know, because you know you reduce duplication. So much of our budget comes from what the state, you know, approves us in our funding formula, that I don't know that you're going to be able to save enough to make that much of a difference as far as cost. So if we're talking about from a tuition of a student, I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of changes there. I mean, the numbers of economic recovery would have to be so great before that really made much of a difference. I think where you'll see the differences, though, is that some great things are currently happening in the state between articulations of our students at the technology centers, being able to transfer their credits to the community colleges, community colleges transfer to the universities, and across all of the universities, even to the point that University of Tennessee is exploring the option of taking all the college credits from a 2-year degree, graduate degree at community college directly and giving them all credit at the UT. So some great things are happening. If we merge into one big system, then you know you can have better agreements between family members than you can against people whose loyalties lie elsewhere. So I think there's a strong advantage of better relationships, however that works, for the betterment of the students. The disadvantage, however, is if we're not careful, we will create even greater pockets of independence. And if that happens, I don't know that that's in our students' best interest.